Beta-alanine. You've likely used it. You've likely used it in a decent amount of pre-workouts, and you probably have an opinion on it, but how much do you really know about it? Today, we're going to talk about beta-alanine, talk about what it does, how it does it, and hopefully break the stigma on how much is right to use. Now, beta-alanine is a classic pre-workout ingredient, and although it doesn't really have any acute benefits in the pre-workout setting, it's an easy time to take the product because I'm sure you're aware of the paresthesia that comes along with it. We all know those pre-workout tingles that some love, some hate, and it's just going to come along with pre-workouts that use beta-alanine. So I'm not going to talk too much about the paresthesia today. We all know that that's what beta-alanine does, and I know we have to get that out of the way. This is a product that's going to make you marginally uncomfortable when you take it, but there are so many more benefits when you take it long term that most of us know. You just got to get through the tingles. Beta-alanine is an awesome ingredient, and there's a reason that so many companies use it. There's a reason that the trademarked version exists. There's a reason that it's so popular. It works, and it works for a lot of different applications. So today we're going to break down the way that it works, the science behind the ingredient, and the benefits that you can expect to see from it. I'm going to be talking about beta-alanine within the scope of Axe Sledge's Basics line. They came out with this beta-alanine. It's tested. It's pure. We love Axe Sledge for the quality that they produce, but beta-alanine is going to be in pretty much every pre-workout that you find out there. Most out there are using some amount of it because of the tingles, because of the recognition of the name, and just because it works. But if you're looking to add some to a pre-workout, we are going to be working with Axe Sledge's Basics standalone beta-alanine today. So first, let's ask the question, what is beta-alanine? Beta-alanine is a non-proteinogenic amino acid, which means it's an amino acid, which amino acids are, generally called building blocks of protein, but it's not used to create protein within the body. And to be honest, beta-alanine is actually classified as a non-essential amino acid because our bodies can actually produce it on its own, meaning specifically it's created endogenously in the liver, and it's also found in the diet in different foods like poultry, some fish, and meat. And that all begs the question, if it's found in food and your body can create it, then why are we supplementing it? Well, it turns out that beta-alanine is a rate-limiting precursor in the synthesis of something called carnosine. Carnosine is a dipeptide molecule within the muscle that helps buffer lactic acid. What does that mean? Well, it helps take that lactic acid, that burn that you experience during workouts, away from your muscles for a variety of different benefits and reasons that we'll get into. But it turns out that this carnosine is made from two things: beta-alanine and histidine. Now, histidine is an essential amino acid that you'll see in other products, in foods, and it's in the body used to create this carnosine. The problem is that the addition of excess histidine within the body has no effect on increasing carnosine production. Beta-alanine is the rate limiting factor here, and science has found that when adding more beta-alanine, more carnosine is produced, not histidine. Furthermore, beta-alanine isn't found in the diet as much as histidine is found. You can get a decent amount of histidine from complete proteins, but you can't find as much beta-alanine. So that's why supplementation is important here. That's why finding it in a powder and adding it to drinks, it's relatively flavor-free, is important. You can't really get enough of it from your diet, similar to like creatine, where you can find it in red meat, but you'd have to eat a lot of it to get the efficacious dosages. So beta-alanine is generally known for its ability to increase muscular endurance alongside a few other things, but we do know that for a fact it helps with muscular endurance. And to explain that, we have to talk about different energy systems within the body. So to perform any physiological functions, including exercise, kind of what we're mostly talking about here, there's three different ways to produce ATP for the body. ATP is the universal unit of energy that your body uses, so your body has to produce that to do anything. Now, ATP is produced through three systems, and we're going to walk through them. Now, this is all found in a blog on our site. If you're interested in reading the full in-depth article, if you're looking for citations, if you're looking for further reading on this, you can go check it out. Every here and there, you'll notice I'm using it as a bit of an outline because some of these words are pretty long. I don't have the best memory for these systems, but you can find all this on our blog if you're interested in more. So these three systems are going to be the creatine phosphate cycle, the glycolytic system, and the oxidative phosphorylation system. The first two are important for intense exercises like weightlifting, cycling, stuff like that, short-term exercises. The third one, the oxidative phosphorylation system, is for more like long-term, endurance exercises, so like marathons, long-distance running, endurance, stuff like that. However, the one thing that's in common for all three of these systems is a byproduct of the creation of ATP from the systems is lactic acid. Now, as this lactic acid builds up in the muscle, it increases the acidity of the environment within the muscle. The problem with this is that raising in acidity is going to negatively impact the ability for these systems to create more energy. And so for this reason, the longer that you can delay the buildup of lactic acid, the longer you can work, for a lack of better terms. This is where beta-alanine and carnosine come into play. Because of the way that carnosine is able to buffer lactic acid, the longer that we can delay that lactic acid buildup, these systems are going to work for longer. You're going to be able to produce ATP longer and stay in the game for a longer amount of time. This transfers to longer muscular endurance, higher work capacity, and things like that. Beta-alanine has some other benefits that we'll get into after we go through the research, but this is mostly the main reason why it's in most pre-workouts. So let's take a look at specific different studies that ended up with significant claims for beta-alanine. It's important to note that beta-alanine is one of the most studied supplement ingredients out there. Next to creatine, caffeine, and some other classics, it is very widely studied. And that's kind of one of the reasons that there's so many different clinical dosages in terms of what amount is used. And that ends up with a lot of controversy when you see brands using anywhere between 1.6 grams and 6.4 grams, because there's a lot of different clinical studies that ended with clinical dosages for different claims. The first one we're going to talk about starts off at the high end. 6.4 grams was studied in 2018 for strength claims. Now, this is one of the more recent studies, and it was published in the JISSN. And these researchers specifically set out to see if beta-alanine could help with the adaptive process to resistance training. They were looking for strength gains in trained individuals. This was a good study because there were 30 individuals in the study. It's not a large population, but they were already trained individuals. We're not looking at elderly folks here who didn't ever lift weights. We're looking at actual athletes here. Over the course of 5 weeks, they followed a resistance training program. Half of them had placebo, and the other half of them were consuming 800 milligrams spread throughout the day between 1.5 and 3 hour intervals, and it came to a total of 6.4 grams daily. The main outcome measures were studied in average velocity, average power, peak power, load in kilograms in a back squat, incremental load, and a 1 repetition max of the back squat as well. At the end of the 5 weeks, researchers found that supplementing with the 6.4 grams had a positive impact on a few of these. Power output, work volume being the overall number of reps, sets, and weight lifted, and the strength as measured by the 1 repetition in the squat all improved. Now, the researchers attributed this benefit to the user's increase in workload, and that makes a lot of sense. Your training and the type of training that you can do, being the intensity, the weights that you can move, the volume you can move per session, the volume you can move per week, and be able to recover from, are all tools in body composition changes and strength changes. The more weight that you can move for the more sets, the more reps, and the more volume over time, and still be able to recover and get back into the gym and progress that over time, is going to equal in a better body composition change. It's obviously going to yield a strength benefit as well, because we're talking about moving more weight, recovering, and then being able to progress to move more weight from that. Now, a study before that at the University of Winchester set out to determine if 4 weeks of beta-alanine usage could improve work capacity as well as carnosine levels. Now, we know that it improves carnosine levels, but the work capacity was an interesting one. Now, in this study, the dosage was started at 4 grams and it worked up to 6.4 grams over time. The researchers actually pulled biopsies from quad muscles during this study to show the differences in carnosine levels. But after the 4 weeks, carnosine levels increased by 58.8% in the beta-alanine group. That's a huge benefit in terms of lactic acid buffering. The work capacity also significantly increased compared to baseline of the placebo group. Now, the onset fatigue study, which was published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning, found that work capacity increased by nearly 15%, but they could also delay neuromuscular fatigue onset after 28 days. So after 28 days of taking beta-alanine, that fatigue was significantly delayed in terms of how long it took to hit. And what's pretty cool about this is that they actually controlled it against creatine in the study. Obviously, creatine is the most studied ingredient of all time, and we all know that it can help with helping add volume into workouts over time. But what was interesting is that after 28 days, the researchers found that both the beta-alanine and the beta-alanine plus creatine groups had significant work capacity gains over the placebo group and the creatine only group. What's interesting about it is that the creatine didn't have an added effect on top of the beta-alanine. And while we have for years touted that creatine helps with adding weights to the bar over time, actual work capacity didn't change very much. Now, most of our viewers are going to be interested in body composition and weight training, but one interesting one I saw was increases in speed. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that with cyclists using carnosine over time, 5 grams of beta-alanine versus placebo over the course of 7 weeks, carnosine levels in biopsies were increased by 45.3%, still staying around that 50% increase over a month to 2 months. But what was interesting was the beta-alanine group versus placebo rode 4.3 seconds faster than the placebo group in a 2,000 meter ergometer test. That's a significant amount of time difference in a speed test. So obviously beta-alanine really shines very well in actual athletic studies where speed, endurance are factors. But if you can harness these changes and use them in your training, we know that training is the gas pedal towards body composition and changes. Training hard is what turns on the system that you then feed and recover from. So with things like this, where you're improving your performance in the gym, bodybuilders and gym rats might not care that much because it's not changing the visibility of their abs, but the harder training is going to lead to body compositions down the road, as long as you can harness that power. Study at University of Oklahoma found after 6 weeks using 1.5 grams of beta-alanine led to better VO2 max, as well as increases in, enhanced changes in body composition. But they were training in high intensity interval training. And so there was a lot of training going on along. It's not surprising their body composition changed better because they were training harder. And lastly, there was a study showing that it boosts cognitive function as well as reduces mental fatigue. This study specifically actually isn't discussed very often, but 18 soldiers, and this was a military study, from an elite combat group were given 30 days of beta-alanine supplementation. And then before and after the study, they performed a 2.5 kilometer run, a 1 minute sprint, a 50 meter casualty carry, multiple 30 meter sprints interspersed with target shooting, and a 2-minute serial subtraction test to assess cognitive function under stressful situations. Nearly every single test, including the SST, the cognitive test, had a significant increase in performance. What was interesting is that carnosine levels in the brain had no detectable difference. So more research is kind of needed on the cognitive side, but there is some data to believe that we should check into this more, that some difference may be made. So hopefully I kept most of you through that. There was a lot of different claims, and I hope I was able to cut that up in post-processing to make it a little bit easier to digest. In terms of dosing beta-alanine and potential side effects, you can take between 4 and 6.4 grams a day and obviously see changes in carnosine levels in the body. Now, one of the annoying things though is going to be that paresthesia I talked about at the beginning, that tingling you get when you take it. Some easy ways to get around that are to use smaller doses more frequently, like 800 milligram dosages with every meal, or having your dose with food. Now, the only other side effect beside the paresthesia when we talk about safety is decreased taurine levels. Beta-alanine may compete with taurine for uptake because it has some similar muscle transporters, but there's no real serious side effects that we've seen from this. It's just kind of a theoretical thing to bring up. If you're using intra-workouts with taurine in them, this shouldn't be a problem. You take your beta-alanine around the day or pre-workout, you take your taurine later on. Now, there is a patented version of beta-alanine out there, and it's not in Axe Sledge's version. I want to make sure that I say beta-alanine itself, as long as it's tested and pure, is going to be effective and safe. That patented version, carnosine, is out there, but there's really no difference. You do know that you're getting a safe one when you're getting their version, because when you're using a generic version like Axe Sledge's, you don't know where it comes. And that's why I recommend you use a company like Axe Sledge that does the due diligence and testing in it. You don't need to spend all the extra amount for the name brand stuff when you're using something that is tested for safety, like heavy metal taste testing, microbial testing, purity testing, identity testing. Obviously, we know that Axe Sledge creates quality stuff, and we can trust them with the quality. So some companies may try to, virtue signal you into using their patented versions, but don't fall for that kind of marketing. So hopefully all of that is helpful for you guys to understand beta-alanine a little bit better. It's mostly going to benefit endurance athletes, but if you can use that benefit as a weight trainer, it can yield huge gains in your body composition and your strength levels. Because it delays that fatigue during your training, you can push your training to newer levels that you hadn't been at before by making sure that you're using the product frequently and regularly. And that's the big thing here. Beta-alanine does not have acute benefits. Over time, you need to build up your blood saturation. And at that point, you then start to see the benefits. So take your beta-alanine every day, taking your pre-workout, take it throughout the day, whatever you need to do to get it in, just take it consistently. Although beta-alanine is not essential by any means, it absolutely can help your training, your body composition, and your potential overall as an athlete. I do have to say that we got this beta-alanine for free from Axe Sledge. We do have a business affiliate relationship with them. We are definitely biased to them because they're great guys that make awesome products, and they're just really cool too. I just want to make sure I put that out there for all the lawyers out there who may be bringing up my biases. In any case, I really appreciate you being this far in the video. I know that this one gets a little bit long. The science ones are a little bit heavier, but hopefully it was easy to digest and understand, and you leave this knowing a little bit more about beta-alanine. If you have any questions, leave them below. I love to read the comments and talk with you about beta-alanine, Axe Sledge, anything in general. I'd be happy to talk about it. In any case, I appreciate making this far in the video. And as always, guys, have a great day.
Welcome to PricePlow.